Friends of the Southland, Sunday, January 1st. Happy New Year, Mr. Purdy. Mr. Grant is unable to be with us, but Happy New Year to you. How did you spend your New Year's Eve?
My New Year's Eve was spent. What did I do in the morning? I don't remember what I did in the morning. Oh, I got ready to watch Tech men's basketball. I forgot the game was at noon. I thought it was at 2, which is when the women's game was today. So nearly was late, but got there and got there in time. Got to enjoy a decent amount. A Virginia game, less a good Tech game. In the crowd at this game though was Coach Cremens, sorry. And then they did not put the camera on Mark Price, even though he was there, or DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter, I kind of get because he's a Virginia guy, but he's still a Hawk, still an Atlanta guy. But there was some legends and current rising all stars in the crowd.
They also had some of Lethal Weapon 3 there as well with Bobby Cremins as well. So good, I guess, a mixed bag of return home for some of that crew, I would say.
Yeah, it was a. I mean, the game itself. We'll get to it later, but before we get there, the crowd was very heavily Virginia for a non UGA game and on Tech's campus. Like I think we just know to expect there's gonna be a lot of Georgia people for games that are here just because of how the geography works out. Now a lot of them are here, but that is the case for UVA as well. A lot of Charlottesville people end up here, just people that go to UVA end up here, and they're good right now, and we're starting to be categorically not in men's basketball, and so they showed out pretty strong. The other group that showed up was Ohio State fans who who pulled a double. Basically this was the well, what do you call it? You call it an afternoon movie? I'm forgetting.
Matinee.
Yeah, it was basically their matinee before the Peach Bowl. So there was plenty of fully decked out Ohio State people, which was cool to see that they were able to come take in a Tech game. That Tech game was ranked third in the 3 games that I watched in terms of enjoyability for me, and it was not close.
I will say that it was cool that Ohio State fans were in attendance, but the one guy that was wearing an Ohio State
Oh
jersey
yeah,
and sitting in the Tech student section was very annoying to me specifically
no, I completely agree.
as someone who was watching on TV.
No, I agree. I agree with that because that student section is front. That is the most screen time any Tech student section gets on television. Like that is as any if there is a
I mean, it's in direct view of the TV cameras, so
yeah,
yes.
it's the only place that really is the case. So that should be a very important spot for Tech athletics to care about. Granted,
Throw
classes
in
are
like
out.
a pullover, man. Like you have a bunch of zip up pullovers
I know. Well, I mean, I
sitting
don't
in
want.
the like.
Well, I think what you do here is you do the same rule that Atlanta United does for their supporter section, which you just can't wear the opposing colors in the section. You just can't do that. And for us, I think that just needs to be you just cannot wear red, no matter what game is happening there.
I
And
think the thing is that like college students, this is also me being a crotchety old man, despite only graduating 4 years ago. Like college students will be like, "Lol, I don't care. I'm
Tech
invincible."
students especially.
Yes, all college students and especially tech students think they're better than other people. So this has been my experience. I was also like that once.
Well, I do think it's a legit rule that I think is worth at least experimenting with to see. When it's a game where there's like 30 students there because it's New Year's Eve and no one's on campus, I think
Yeah, maybe not
there
that,
can be some leeway there, but
but
when it
like
gets
Duke and
to
UNC,
yeah,
which this always happens like with Duke and UNC. Like I remember one year, Jake tells a story about one year when he was waiting in line before a Duke game. He was third in line behind 2 tech students, but Duke fans, like decked out in Duke gear. Um, and had to silently stew for 2 hours until they let people in the door.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
so
not
yeah,
fun.
the price of not having a rule like that is high for those like big feature games.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate. A lot of other unfortunate stuff happened with the college football playoff. I refuse to talk about it, so I'm not going to give Jack a platform to talk about it. But let's talk about college football in general at Georgia Tech. Let's start with some new staff hires. A new director of football to replace Scott Wallace was hired from Louisville. Josh Thompson Experience at Louisville for the last 5 years. Also has some experience at App State. I believe the person that tweeted this out also noted that he had some experience doing football operations at old friend Jerry Howard's high school. So some interesting connections there. A whole new strength and conditioning staff is also arriving to the Flats later this year. Let's start with the director, AJ Artis. He was the director of strength and conditioning at USF the past 2 years, and the director of sports performance at Tennessee in 20. His staff is made up of Byron Gerardo, who's the associate director of, and I kid you not, football strength and performance and accountability. Jordan Diaz, who's the director of speed and associate director of football performance. Tyler Smith, the assistant director of football strength and conditioning, and Sean Boyle, who you may know his brother Pat Boyle. Sean Boyle is the performance manager and assistant director of football strength and conditioning. Pat Boyle is Tech's football research and analytics coordinator. Both of them have multiple degrees from Temple. So interesting layers of connections there. The last hire before I stop talking and let you speak, Jack, is a new wide receivers coach, Josh Crawford. He comes from Western Kentucky, where he was the wide receivers coach and co-offensive coordinator. That news comes courtesy of Russell Johnson at Rivals and Matt Zenitz at On3 Sports. The last one, which I'll add some color to, is an interesting hire considering the very air raidy, bombs away kind of offense that Western Kentucky ran last year, which led to their OC Zach Kitley getting hired by Texas Tech last offseason. So interested to see how some of that stuff possibly trickles up with a new offensive staff. Mr. Purdy, do you have anything you'd like to mention with some of these hires?
Beyond the fact that I'm laughing at the title Director of Speed, not all that much. I do like. I mean, hey, if the air raid can show up here, I think that's helped. That continues in the trend of marketability of Georgia Tech football in a possibly a positive way.
I think
it has to work too. It has to work first for one. If we do anything like that, also
it's
just
an identity thing
at quarterback,
right? It's an identity thing. I think we know Georgia Tech as having such a strong football identity for the past, like before the past 5 years, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. And having a stamp that you can put on like that on a program is nice. Like maybe like it's a schema box for you or like, but it's like comfortable to have a program identity centered around a specific style of football. And Brent Key said like, hey, he wants to be a team that opponents hate to play. They hate to come into Bobby Dodd and they hate to face him. And being really good at the air raid is definitely one of those things. As long as your opponents don't play zone.
Yeah, it can become very annoying. I think finding an annoying way of football to play is that's beneficial. That's the case for any kind of sport. But yeah, no, I definitely quarterback consistency will be important there too, just to establish. Consistency has not been a thing this team has had beyond consistently not playing well enough. And I mean, we've run through Jordan Yates, we've run through Tobias Oliver, Sims, the various Zachs.
Haynes King next year, Fomachan last year.
There's a lot. Yeah, getting to just a name instead of multiple names will be something, which is not a super in-depth thing, but I think considering where we are now and where this thing could go, now we know that there's a co-OC that's got air raid experience. Who knows how this defines Key's for first full year?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and it's unfortunate though that Josh Crawford doesn't get to work with Nate McCollum. Nate McCollum, who's now transferred to UNC, especially considering how much Nate McCollum improved this year and how big of a part of the offense that he was.
Yeah.
This year. Also headed to UNC, Derek Allen, cornerback. So those are two transfer portal exits from Georgia Tech. But I think that covers all of the football news. Mr. Purdy, do you have anything else before we take a quick break?
Go Horned Frogs.
Big sigh. We'll be right back to talk about both basketballs and a little bit of swimming right after this short break.
just got something from Section 103 for Christmas, there is probably a 100% chance you like what you got. So don't return it because you should keep it because it looks really good on you. And taking that, it looks good on everybody. That's just how that goes. Free shipping for anything over $70. They are not shipping as of right now. If you listen to this on January 2nd, but on January 3rd, if you have an outstanding order, they will get sent out that day or soon after. You can find, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Section 103 is a great spot, is of the best places to get licensed Georgia Tech gear with the coolest designs that there is out there. You can find it at Section 103, the Roman numerals, not Roman numerals, Arabic numerals 103, section103.com, or Twitter at Section 103.
Welcome back to Scions of the Southland for January 1st for New Year's Day. Let's talk about two men's basketball games that occurred right before the turn of the year. Tech lost to Clemson 66-79. Yes, I'm reading that out the European way. That was earlier this week. And then on New Year's Eve, Tech lost to UVA 56-74. That is AP ranked 13th UVA. I think I quit both of these games at halftime because it was the same story, right? It's the team just, I think they kept the games close into the half, but as we got closer and closer to the half, it was just a frustrating lack of consistency, couldn't get shots to drop, took bad shots, and turned the ball over a ton. And that's the story on this team, is that you can beat them as if you force them to make shots from outside, and if you dominate the paint defensively. And it's very frustrating to see them make the exact same mistakes game over game. And honestly, kind of year over year, because this was more or less the same story last year too.
Yeah, I missed the Clemson game, but score-wise, I'm kind of glad I did. But yeah, I was at the Virginia game, and after the 25-0 run and I missed that it was 25-0 initially during the game because it crossed over the two halves. But when Sturdivant and I think Miles Kelly came to the press room after, like, you could just see it in their faces, like they knew that it was bad, that they did not play they didn't play anywhere close to the level that they have played in the past and have shown that they can do it this year. And they got outplayed really badly. Pastor repeatedly used the word atrocious to describe the whole thing. Tech, I mean, turnover wise, they've actually been a good team. Like, they've been top 50, top something good nationally in turnovers with 11 or less in 9 of 12 games, and at worst 16. And they had 11 in the first half and 12 in the second. No, 11. No, they finished with 23. And it was just, there were so many careless ones out there. There were some that were kind of unlucky at times. But either way, like the ball was not being taken care of. The ball handling was poor. Rodney Howard, I think, was probably one of the highlights there. Like, he was doing work out of the basket to be good defensively. But once UVA blew the game open, Tech didn't show the kind of energy and effort you need to come back and win this thing, and that's just where.
I mean, you just can't let up a 25-0 run.
I mean, yeah,
it kind of comes down to that. Like, you got to play better defense than that. I don't really have anything more to say on this. It's just increasingly frustrating that this is the same exact story every single game. Maybe the turnovers have gotten better this year. I'll, per what you said, I'll maybe walk that bit back, but it's the same exact story where they just completely fall asleep for a part of the game and get out hustled. And it's like, I don't really know what more I can say about this team at this point.
I did ask Tony Bennett, their UVA's coach, after the game, because there was at one point in, like, the second half where you could teach Tech's defense to someone, because they had their usual consolidated structure stretched out the full court, where you had their one guy they're going to the guy with the ball, and then there are three guys, like, at half court, like it's the beginning of a soccer game or something, and then Howard or Franklin in the paint, and it was super spread out. And they were UVA. I counted, they had 10 open threes from the corner. They made 10 in the game out of 21, I think, attempted shots from three. Um, and so when I asked Tony about like how are y'all finding that, and he was just like, basically the main idea is you take that 1-3-1, which can be an amorphous blob, shrink it down, get close to the hole, and then just kick out. And they did that over and over and over again, and Tech didn't have a response for it.
You have to adjust to something like that too,
Yeah,
especially if you see the exact same play, and the lack of adjustment there is also frustrating.
it kept happening. It just kept happening. Now it happened. Well, it happened 3 times. Hold on. Well, yeah, I don't have the paper where I wrote it down, but they had 8 of them in the first half, and then 2 in the second half. But they made, or 11, maybe 11 total. But they had so many of them. I just had to start counting because they kept doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's just like how you gotta change. And that 1-3-1, I mean, it's meant to be a highly intense defense. It's meant to be able to rotate as it needs to rotate. But UVA is fast enough passing the ball and getting to spots before we can make a difference.
Yeah, it's again not a lot more to say. They'll play again on Wednesday, the 4th, versus 14 Miami. I think that's a 7 p.m. tip, probably on ACC Network or ACC Network Extra. It's just
This is a barometer game. Miami will be a barometer game. This is I haven't watched Miami enough to like know what they do well or who their best guys are, but just in terms of just sheer effort and being able to just clean up the things that were a mess against Virginia, if it doesn't happen here, that's big. That's big worries. That's is Pastner on the hot seat worries.
speaking of that, or speaking of Passer, at least, according to his pre-game presser before UVA, he slept in his car after the Clemson loss,
Mm-hmm.
which is
He
very.
didn't try it. He didn't want to. It just kind of happened that way.
I'm not surprised though.
Oh no,
Like
no one was. No, if you know Pastner, this is very unsurprising.
this is like the most Pastnerism to ever Pastner. Like the
Yeah.
guy, I wonder if he's going to sleep in his car again, or he did sleep in his car again after the UVA game.
Well, no, because it was like 4 in the afternoon.
Eh, eh, maybe he did. Maybe he just needed a nap.
He's got a lot of kids to go back home to.
He's only got like the one, doesn't he?
No, he's got more than he's got like 3 or 4.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not responsible to know, or I'm not. I don't need to know about Pastor's personal life, but that's fine. That lends more credence to the idea that he needs a nap. Let's switch over to women's games. We don't really need to talk about the Furman game from last or a couple Wednesdays ago.
Yeah.
I think we covered it, and that was kind of a nothing burger. Furman didn't really put up that much of a fight. Then Tech headed to Charlottesville. They kept it close most of the way. It was a 2 possession game for most of the game, and
Yeah.
then
Then it wasn't.
things kind of got messy towards the end. Walk me through what happened there.
I mean, yeah, they held it within 5 for a long time in that game. And UVA was definitely favored in this game. The starters, I mean, the turnovers weren't awful in this round. Bianca Jackson not critically, but she got to 1,000 points during the game, career, which they did a fun commemoration for before today's game. Swartz was hit a couple buckets, but similar to the men, Cavaliers went on an 11-0 run, not 25. Also, this was before the men's game, so this was technically the beginning of all this stuff. And it was just another turnover problem game. Tech was at 10 turnovers by the 6-minute mark in the second quarter, and 5 of them were unforced. Like it became a series of just mindless errors that lost that game more than anything else. I mean, they were in striking distance. They really were.
They had the lead for a pretty
they got the lead
portion
back
of the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly.
Not in the fourth.
Oh, okay.
No,
Then
yeah.
I missed part of the game.
Yeah, no, they were up at halftime though. They were up 31-28. They were down for most of the first half, and then Inez Unaguero hit a 3, and then Caleb Blackshear got a bucket to retake the lead after UVA had gotten a bucket back. So they had a good shot there, and they had an 8-0 run, and then UVA scored 9 straight buckets and had a 27-point third quarter. Yeah.
It's the
And it wasn't a third quarter nap though. We still scored 16 points. I mean, it wasn't our best quarter, but it wasn't for we just fell asleep. Like the one side of the ball was still doing its work. but they just could not stop UVA, which was kind of the case most of the time. And that the portion where UVA started blowing the game open was right when Ilya Love got her first minutes of the game. And then after that, it was just done. And we'll get to more about Ilya Love after I talk about Florida State.
So I think this still qualifies as a third quarter nap because the at Tech 40, UVA 37, when Cam Swartz makes a free throw at 5:15 left in the third quarter, Tech does not score another point until 2:11 left in the third. Yeah, 2:11 left in the third, I think. And by then UVA has gone up by 8 points. So
yeah. Also, I mean, they were getting every bounce, and that they had a missed second free throw, and then pulled a Luka Doncic and got the bucket on that, so turned a 2-point play into a 3-point play. And so those kind of things were biting us in the rear during the third quarter.
Yeah, and Tech brought it as close as 3 in the middle of the fourth quarter, and then UVA held their advantage at like 5 the rest of the way, more or less.
Yeah.
So, and it ended at 6.
Oh,
So
I forgot. I have notes about. I found my notes from this game. Yeah, so that I wrote about that particular possession to myself. Bianca Jackson had to run up, get the ball up quickly. And then it was just a possession that Cam had the ball and no one was passing and no one was cutting, and she just got stripped because just nothing was happening offensively. And that's been a theme I've seen throughout a lot of these games is Bianca or Cam will get the ball and they're just waiting for them to do something, as if they're James
the old
Harden.
Atlanta United attacking philosophy, I see.
It's more that these girls are not James Harden and they're not doing a full space and find threes offense, but they're doing too many parts of it.
Yeah, it's an offensive philosophy. I can say that much. There's not much more I can say about it. Well, if you thought UVA was bad in terms of offensive output and offensive frustration, I don't know what you would call playing Florida State earlier today, in which Tech lost. Let me check my notes here. 99-58 to go 0-3 in conference play, tied for last in the conference. It was not close at all. This featured a first quarter nap in which Tech did not score from, 4 minutes left in the first quarter to 9 minutes left in the second quarter.
It was an 8-4. There was one bucket in there. They were outscored 19-1 over 8:46 of game time between the two quarters.
Tech shot 27% from the field and 27% from three, had 20 turnovers. Not good. Not
good at all. 5 points in the first quarter. Pretty sure that's the fewest all season.
Yeah,
that's for a single quarter. It was really bad. It was. I mean, they were finding their shots in the first quarter. Me and Rod McKenzie did notice that while we were watching the game from 247, and like they were getting their looks. Things just weren't dropping, and then FSU had it 15-5 and kept on going. And
the thing is, you can get XG'd, like that, but you have to also score buckets at some point else.
And they didn't do that until the fourth quarter when they scored 37.
Yeah, so garbage time makes this look a lot better. I think.
There was 15 straight buckets made in the fourth quarter between both teams, except Florida State scored 9 of those buckets.
Ugh.
It was getting ridiculous how hot both teams were at the end there. We only shot 36%, but it was still like, why is this happening now? Like, where was this the rest of the game?
I'll note a couple other stats. Inez Noguero, again, 16 points, 6 of 10 shooting off the bench for 20 in 26 minutes, 4 of 7 from 3. So another good game from her. Another really good offensive output game from her. The rest of the starting squad, 8, 4, 9, 8, 8 in terms of points. Nothing from Maria Hermosa. Cara Dunn put together 3, and AC Carter put together 2 points. So
shots were not going down between Cameron and Bianca. They were combined 5 of 21. No, 5 of 31.
Yeah. Cameron Schwartz 2 for 14 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3. Bianca Jackson, 3 for 17 from the field, 1 of 6 from three. So a very frustrating offensive output game. Um,
Well, it's the defense. I mean, the defensive. I looked at the advanced stats. They're just as bad. I mean, this was a failure on both sides of the floor. Just to put it lightly. I mean, Nell said afterwards that they just did not have. They didn't compete. They literally just said we did not compete today. They weren't there.
that's a beatable team too. Florida State has been in in rebuild mode or neutral. They'll make the tournament, but they've been in rebuild mode and neutral the last couple of years, and it's frustrating to
Yeah,
see a
we
team
should
that
have beat them
you
last
beat the
year.
last couple of years.
Yeah,
Um,
we actually
uh,
lost our last game to them because they were in that stretch of games where the team slid late before going to the tournament, but they were almost won. I mean, they almost won that game too. Um,
yeah,
I will have to note Tania Latson, who plays for them. I believe she's a freshman. She went 13 of 13 from the line, scored 32 points, and drew 8 fouls as well. Like she did whatever she wanted today, and looked like one of those ACC first team All American kind of players. Like it was remarkable to watch her, but it's because she got to play on easy mode today. That's where that went.
Two interesting notes from this game. Noguero again. I think we have to mention her, just not just based on the stat line, but I think she had a really good game and has. I think you have to play her. Like you have to start her at this
That's
point.
what I
Like
asked. I
she,
asked Nell that. I was like, did she earn more playing time today? Like she by far. I mean, you can just tell. What I mean, I would encourage y'all to just watch the next game, just to even if we play just as poorly, at least watch Inez play because you can tell she's thinking about the game differently when she's playing. She's making the passes no one else on Tech's team is making. She's finding her spots in open space and she's cutting off ball. She's doing all the things you would want everyone else to do in the guard position, and she's doing it well. Now she is 5'9", she's undersized, and her defense wasn't great today either. But she did have a couple pickpocket kind of good steals. So there's still a lot of work to get there. Nell was like she was great on offense. She was really the hope on offense to give us a shot if we were to get one. But it did not come back on the defensive end. But that went for everybody today.
yeah. I mean, her minutes haven't really picked up. I will say, she's sort of been alternating longer
Well,
spells.
today with today's new development caused I think the uptick of her minutes as well.
Yeah, but I think at a certain point, she's averaging 8 minutes and 3 points over 9 games, but she's shooting 44% from the field and shooting 46% from three. I think you have to bring her in just for some sort of offensive spark. You
Yeah.
have to get something going, and you have to have an attacking bite. I know I'm using a lot of soccer words, but also she's Spanish. I think I can get away with that. Um, like you have to have an attacking bite, and she's doing the off-ball work there to
Yeah.
give you that attacking bite. I think she's earned some playing time.
Yeah.
Um, the second note, and I think you have a Nell quote directly from this, is about Aaliyah Love.
Yes.
Do you want to walk through this news? Because I still am trying to understand what happened here.
So the short of it, and this is word for word from Coach Fortner, Lily Love's been dismissed from the team. That's all we know. She was not on today's roster, which I noted mid game that she wasn't in any of the huddles and didn't play. And then I checked the just the roster sheet, and she wasn't listed. Number 24 was gone. And that made me question what was happening. And then, yeah, that's what she said after the game, so that she's dismissed. I don't know why. In particular, all I know is that she did not play anywhere close to as good as she did last year. Just in terms of the pure basketball parts that I've seen, she played more lethargic. Her shot wasn't there. She played slower. But it just there's a lot of fact. I think I don't know what's going on. So all I have to say, she's no longer on the team. They wished her well. The team Nell didn't say anything else about that. There's nothing on the socials to hint at anything. So that's she's just gone. Against Virginia, she got very little playing time then as well.
3 minutes.
3 minutes of playing time, and she had started 8 games though, which was this was the curious part to me. I mean, if you watch, I went to the exhibition. It was clear she wasn't in shape, which not everyone's in shape at the beginning of the season. That's fine. I mean, even Luka Doncic doesn't get in shape until arguably February of the NBA season, but played her way into Playing time though, like started plenty of games. Got her guard spot back from Kayla Blackshear, we were doing a 3-2, then we went to a 4-1, and then just didn't start the Virginia game, and then was gone today.
Let me hit you with some minutes numbers while I have ESPN pulled up. She was at, well, actually, let me go bottom to top from the start of the season: 10, 22, 32, 19, 26, 24, 26, 23, and then 12, 13, 22, 12, and 3. So
There's a drop off. There's a
there's
drop off.
definitely a drop off where she sort of fell out of favor with the staff, and that's in 13 games played of Tech's 14. Today
Yeah,
was the 14th, so she appeared in all of them. UVA was only a 3 minute spell, so it's unknown. I don't really want to comment on it. I don't know what's going on. Like you said, I don't
there's
even
that.
want
Yeah,
to go. I don't even
spec.
want to do the like the shape stuff. But I'll note this for the record. Last year she played 32 games. I averaged 30 minutes. Averaged 10.5 points, around 5 rebounds, around 2 assists. Um,
She
and
saved.
was shooting.
She saved the team in multiple games. She had multiple 20-point games last year that were the reason we won. I like she was a incredibly important piece of that team. Her baseline jumper was of the best reliable shots the team had
Yeah,
all of the 21 to 22 season.
yeah. And even in the the COVID year, she was 26 games played, averaging 19 minutes, 5 points. Still putting together like important minutes during a stretch where the team was pretty limited rotationally. So
Yeah,
we don't know what's going on. Nell is obviously not saying anything, but the key word here being dismissed is interesting. And but I just don't. There's not even stuff to speculate about, right?
no,
Like there hasn't been a peep.
there's
So
nothing.
we'll keep an eye on it, and if there's an official update from the athletic department, we'll pass that along. Anything else from women's basketball before we move on?
They go and play. Oh, who do they go and play? Do they play in Miami too? They might be playing Miami next as well. Oh no, they go play Louisville on Thursday. They got to go to the Yum Center and play Louisville.
Mm,
So
the fake NBA arena, yes.
mm-hmm.
All right, so they'll be in Louisville on, you said Thursday?
Thursday night. Yep.
Thursday night. Let's do some quick hitters, or at least one quick hitter before we get out of here and clean stuff up. Swimming will return to Macaulay this next weekend. They will be in a dual meet versus SCAD and Texas A&M. Interesting. On Friday the 6th, and then they'll face Auburn on Saturday the 7th. They have not been in a pool for official competition since the middle of November. What you got for me on this?
There's a lot of meets coming up at Tech. I mean, they have I think 5 or 6 race days just in January alone on campus before the big ACC stuff happens and last chances and all those kind of fun stuff. So no traveling this year. Swimming is, I guess, kind of fun because you get to see a lot more smaller schools. It's like that in softball. You get like the really small ones, like Queens is coming down here supposedly. I think they were supposed to come here last year and didn't, which is why that's happening this year. And like SCAD, I kind of forget SCAD has athletics at times. So all fun stuff. Come see. We have someone. Jake would know this off the top of his head, but we had some program records set in November. So we might have some new program records set before we get into the really important meets where we're supposed to go as fast as at the fastest of the season. So
This is just like your note about the small programs thing is very interesting because I've never heard of Carson Newman, and that is who
we play them in baseball. I think at times.
I've never heard that program name before, but we swim against them at the end of January. Just to while I'm looking at the schedule, Friday, January 20th, Tech's women will face West Florida's. January 27th, that's Tech hosting Carson Newman, and then January 28th they'll host Gardner Webb, and then Queens on the 20th of January as well. There are two open dates here on the 3rd and the 4th of February.
Oh, that's
I
true.
assume
Yeah, you're right.
and they're both listed as away. So I assume they're still looking for places to plug and play swimmers.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that because those are the last chance meets before ACC championships. And then that's the weekend of the 14th of February, and then you get the last chance meet at the end of February for zones and for the NCAA. It's a mess. Like it
Yeah.
goes right into championships basically when we're done with swimming by Easter, more or
Yep,
less.
it's a lot.
It's a wild ride to the end of the year, and it's also weird that we're not hosting this year. That was a pretty fun experience last year, but
They got
this year
the
it's in Minnesota.
they got the rotations. And the women are in Knoxville, so I mean, like they got their rotations. It's fine. We'll get it back. You don't win. You don't host everything every year. Unlike, hey, we should have gotten the Final Four back. That's what I'm most pissed about is that we didn't get that back after not getting it in COVID 2020. But
I have such a headache about that, but that's neither here nor there.
yep.
IMO. Before we get out of here, construction corner, Mr. Purdy, what you got?
Yeah, as I'm scootering to McCamish, they're rebuilding the, I guess it's called a retaining wall, just the stone wall out in front of Cloudman where they hold up all the plants and everything like that. It looks to be close to done. So if you're coming back to campus for classes and later this month, I don't think that'll the sidewalk's currently blocked, but I do not believe it will be because it looks pretty close to done. But there'll be a nice shiny new stone wall. Not shiny, it'll just be a new stone wall there that matches the rest of the walkway.
Yeah, I believe that was damaged at some point during the fall. I
Probably.
don't
It seems
remember
like
exactly when, but I remember at some point while I was walking back from an Atlanta United game, there was some damage there, and they'd started working on it. I walked past this retaining wall earlier today, walking back from the Falcons game. It is more or less done. They just have a couple of stones to put down on top. So, yeah, good to go there. Anything else on that?
I don't know of any other construction happening. Student center's
We
done.
talked about the fountain, right? We
It
we did
well,
talk about the
we may
Campanile
as well.
fountain.
I mean, we can again. The fountain's done at the Campanile. If you haven't
It's
seen it,
very nice.
the rest. I haven't gone to check on the rec garage as of recent.
Oh, I
The
have. I was
okay,
there. I was there last weekend, and I do have. It's not really inside baseball, but I do know what the situation is with that. It's not done on the inside.
right.
They've installed the elevator. They've installed all like the machine components, like the working on the car components in there. They may have used the wrong shade of gold. I think gold
Mm,
paint on some of the tables, like the tool tape. I don't know what they're called. The benches, but that's a personal nitpick. Um, I think the opening is scheduled. The official grand opening is scheduled for March. So
March. Okay.
they'll probably work. They'll probably work to get some of the stuff in, get the car tested in there. It might have a soft open. Like I don't know anyone in the rec club to source this off properly, but I assume it'll have a soft open where the driver is using it already. Like the new driver that's coming in is already being trained up. That's what they do over winter break.
Hmm.
So there'll be a new driver in place by I guess next week when they start classes, and they'll start using it at some point over the next 2 months, I assume. So, and then
Yeah.
there'll be an official opening. So,
All the yeah. Last I was there, all the new bike racks they need to go in or in
I
on the
assume they're
slate.
just waiting on stuff to get shipped to put inside the thing, like
Yeah,
tools,
yeah,
and
yeah. The plants and all the agriculture and whatnot. That's mostly done.
that's been done for like 3 months at this point.
Oh no, they were still putting. They were like fixing up a lot of the dirt around the garage, like right next to this, right next to the student center on
Student
that
center.
left hand side. I don't. There might still be some fencing up for some agricultural stuff they're doing outside the Campanile, like on that walkway between Tech Green and where like all the different kinds of styles of trees are. But
You mean now where it's finally accessibility or like wheelchair accessible for the
yes,
first time in like 70 years?
yes, it is. All of it's wheelchair accessible now.
It is
Um,
kind of embarrassing that that was not for
yeah.
such a long time, but
The
I
other
digress.
the other thing that I will go and find out soon is they were ripping out the chairs in the Macaulay Aquatic Center in like October, November, December, and redoing all the seats in there. I had not gotten to see if
It
they had
has to be
installed.
done by next weekend,
I know I
technically.
haven't got well unless they just I mean they don't do a crowd for half of these anyways, so I would
Well,
hope so because they're marketing it. They had an ad for it on the tennis court across where you can see it, where they put all their main ads for basketball games as people are walking in and out.
I hope
But I
it's
haven't gone back
done.
in there to see if it's actually done or not, or if some of the sections are done.
Go in today and pump some iron, Jack. Go pump some iron at CRC and take a look for us. Do some bootleg journalism.
I gotta go. Actually, gotta renew my membership, so it's a good reminder for me to do that.
There we go. Sounds like someone's doing some capital or big J journalism for us today.
That's all I got.
All right, that's all I got. Too. I think that does it for us. No Jake to do the outro, and I don't really remember what he does. So I will read off our list of plugs. Go read the website from therumbleseat.com. Comment on the site. We love your comments. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate any feedback that you have for us.
Yes.
Uh, email from the rumble seat at gmail.com. Talk to us at for FTRS blog. Jake's Twitter is at Jake Grant 98. Jack Nicholas. Thank you again to our partner, Section 103. We love them. At Section 103 on Twitter and section103.com. Instagram, Facebook for From the Rumble Seat. It's all at From the Rumble Seat. We have been very consistent in that regard. And finally, go subscribe wherever your fine podcasts are sold. Go while you're still in town for Christmas or New Year's, go take your relatives' devices and go subscribe on there and just boost our numbers for us. It makes us feel
Yes.
good, gives us the happy brain juice. For me, for Jack, and for Jake, who's not here, good night, good luck, and go Jackets.